I'm delighted to welcome back Rupert. This is something we've been waiting for all year, because I think you gave your last talk was that a year ago. Yeah. Then Rupert talked about the Star Core and the astronomical and astrophysics aspects of it. This is now the history, the evidence on Earth for previous visits. So Rupert, delighted to see you again, and over to you.
Yes, that's right. Okay, I'm going to start this. This isn't in my book, this is actually into my third book. I discovered an ancient star map of Orion. I don't know the original discovery. The star map was discovered in about 1975, but they didn't realize it was a star map. It's in a cave. It's on the east coast of Sardinia. It's quite an extraordinary thing because it's 8 meters long and it was drawn 2 meters off the ground. Whoever did it was very big. It wasn't a normal sized person. Okay? Each of these petroglyphs was about, how big? It's a big bit of masonry, big chop, chop, chop. And when the map was first discovered, they didn't think it was a map, they just thought it's some ritual dance images. You can go through the literature and you can see they speculated on what it might or might not be. The important thing is in a cave, in a region where it's the centre of this megalithic culture, which built the tombs of giants. And their tombs are quite big. They could accommodate definitely a person 2.5 metres high. So today, Sardinia is quite small, about the smallest group in Europe on average. But whoever was doing this stuff were big people. This is a plan of the map that is in this cave. It's in the Dorgali Museum. It's done on a 1 to 10 scale, so that distance there is 0.5 meters, so it's a huge thing. Okay. Now, what I noticed was that this pattern is rather similar to this, which is Orion. And so I actually saw it in 1995, but I wasn't absolutely 100% sure it was a good absolute match. Okay. So I've then analysed it actually quite recently, and it's very interesting. All right, the actual map in the cave, that's the title of it, is this way. Okay. Okay, I used to spend quite a long time in Cyprus, and this is a picture I took last year of Orion. Okay, I put the stars in it to make it easy to see. You can probably see that it doesn't really fit that picture. However, if you turn the picture upside down, the fit is really quite good. Right, they're the dot stars, and that's Betelgeuse. Okay? And then the question is, what is this object which has been carved? It's obviously been moving. They probably just detected it and then did another position or another position. Okay? I think this was an observation of Star Core Zeus as it appeared about 1700 BC. And definitely the dates of this culture are 1700 BC. In addition, when you look at the orientation of Orion relative to the horizon, it actually gives you information of your latitude. Okay, because you may not know this, but if you look at Orion in Norway, going from Gold Stars to Betelgeuse, it's going that way. And in Singapore, and the equator, it's like that. In New Zealand, it's like that. It's quite surprising. Maybe we're camping in New Zealand, you'll see Orion's upside down. Orion's not upside down, you're upside down. Okay? So, you can actually work out more or less what latitude is from a picture of Orion. Now, it's rather good fit for Cyprus, but not for Sardinia. That's a bit weird. So it suggests two things. One, okay, this guy was looking at Orion on the eastern horizon and drawing it upside down. Well, the whole planet was upside down when he was drawing it. Okay? And its location in terms of latitude was different at the same time. Now, this is just one little piece of evidence. The early part of Cataclysms and Renewals in the book, what I do is I go through these really strange star stories you get, that there are a number of people who compiled all the mythology and stories related to particular stars, or you get big legends about flying dragons or eyes in the sky or something strange. but they all tend to cluster around this region of sky. Okay? And when you look at, for example, the zodiac of Dendera, which is now in the Louvre in Paris, you also get something strange, which is, this is Sirius, which is well identified, this is Orion, this is well established. This is Horus. Now, Horus is the main god, the destructive god, the sky god. And he's right on that, again, that same line, that same orbital track you're getting there. Now, I won't go into huge detail, but basically, analysing a lot of these stories, I came up with an orbit which would be consistent with what people were observing going through the sky. So it's not a circular orbit, it's a highly eccentric orbit going off in the direction of Sirius. And basically, I think Star Core Zeus is about there. This is its current location. And that's approximately where, I'll move to that later because this is only 70 years from a flyby, but we are 350 years from a flyby at the moment. Okay. This picture is simply to show that that's the solar system with all the planets. This is the plane of the orbit between the Sun and the star core. So they're angled about 66 degrees to each other. Okay, so it's a different plane. And this is the plane of that orbit there. Okay. And the other important point is just obvious. Sirius is 8.6 light years away. It's simply a marker of an angular location in the sky. The star core never gets as far away as Sirius. It's basically quite a small distance relative to our solar system. 500 astronomical units is maximum separation.
That's 66 degrees from the ecliptic.
66 from the ecliptic. In fact, if you have an orbital inclination, that's 113 degree 0.5 orbital inclination. If you put the actual orbital elements in, it's easy to understand that's 66 degrees. That's the ecliptic there. That's the star.
So, a question. Earlier, talking about you couldn't see this thing.
Right.
So, how did it become visible?
Because when it's close, you can see it. Because basically it's quite a large, clouded object. There's a central massive core, but the thing is surrounded by a big dark gas cloud, dust cloud. And so you get some big reflection. So when you see it, it's 70 AU from the sun. So it's got some arc minutes of visual angle. It's quite big.
You could see it with the naked eye.
You could see, well, people obviously did see the naked eye. I mean, but I'll get on to telescopes in a moment. Now, meet some astronomers. Right. These are statues of these very tall people in Sardinia about 1700 BC. But one thing that's very strange is they are really similar looking to these people. This is a statue of someone who was at the astronomy site in southern Turkey, in Göbekli Tepe. Okay? And one thing that I want to draw your attention to, you see his eyebrows and his ears. His eyebrows and his ears. That's quite unusual. Most people's ears are below their eyebrows. There's a group of people who are a different racial group of people. Okay? We know that Göbekli Tepe was an astronomical site. We know certainly the Sardinians were making calendars with gnomons. So the vertical stone, you measure the shadows, you make a calendar. Okay? And in fact, even the word gnomon, it's of unknown origin. We know it's from the sort of Western Mediterranean. Some people say it's a Phoenician word. We don't know where it comes from. But it's interesting to remember that word. Okay, so this statue is about 1700 BC. These are graves actually very close to where I showed you the star map is, and that would accommodate a pretty big person.
So do you think these are actually to scale then?
Yeah, both statues are about 2.5 meters high.
And so these would be people who are 2.5 meters high.
Yeah, so I'm saying a major 8 meter star map would be pretty big, and to be banging rocks like 2 meters in the ground, you're pretty tall. Right, so here's mystery and here's the sleuthing. Right, okay, this is that star symbol in Sardinia. And when people first started looking at this, they, as I say, they just thought, oh, this is some anthropomorphic figure, it's a person, it's a dancer or something, it's not a star. However, it's on the flag, it's on the Berber flag, it's on the Tuareg flag, Tuareg Mauritania, and it's the star symbol of the Dodo. Right? So it looks like, and as I say, because of the statue, maybe these people originated from this region, Fertile Crescent. And so they look like they were boat people. You know, they are basically navigating on the coastlines, they got to Sardinia, they got around the African coast, and that's how it spread. The star symbol is quite different from that's the Egyptian star symbol or the Mesopotamian star symbol. These people, Dogon, live here. They live in very defensible dwellings halfway up the cliff faces in basically Mali, in West Africa. Now, this is a close-up of the Sardinian star map. And as I said, these figures are quite big. And there are two types of characters: these things, and also this, the eye star. Okay? And you can first compare that to that. It looks like it's a similar type of symbol.
It's a Dogon.
This is a Dogon mask. The Dogon's took strong
map. Is that the Dogon map?
No, this is from Sardinia.
Oh.
This is Dogon. So this is a plaster cast of a bit of that cave, which is now in the London Museum. Now, meet the Dogons. They really enjoy astronomy. Now, they're all dancing and jumping. They've got stars on their heads. And in addition, they talk about their teachers of astronomy, who are very big, and they get on stilts to show just how big they were. Right? And they even say that after a terrible cataclysm, giant nomos, so I was nomos, where the word comes from, arrived from the sea and showed the Dogon how to use the nomos to make calendars. They taught astronomy for navigation, they taught astrophysics, and they also taught about something called the eye star. And this was such an extraordinary thing. In fact, the person who studied this was actually a French fighter pilot who then went into anthropology in the 1930s and lived with the Dogon. He eventually became professor of the Sorbonne in anthropology. In fact, he was the first professor of that chair. Anyway, his data was so extraordinary. In 1976, Robert Temple wrote a book called Sirius Mystery, where he basically went into great detail about what Briel had discovered. And the problem was that Dogon seemed to know more about our solar system than they should, and they knew things that were inexplicable. And one of the things they knew was about degenerate star cores and the density of them, the metallic nature of them. And they said basically there was a star core in orbit, which is the remains of the parent star of the Sun. Now, when Temple looked at this story, he said it must be aliens, ancient aliens. It was ancient aliens. It's not ancient aliens. It's really interesting. So here is Briel discussing astronomy with Ogotameli, who was his one of the chiefs. And basically, Briel made a bit of a mistake because Ogotameli was telling him there's a big star core out there in the sky and pointed at Sirius. Now, Briel thought, he was talking about the star Sirius. The star Sirius actually has a white dwarf going around it, and was going, wow, how do these people know about something, 9 light years away? Right? And the point is, he made a mistake. What Ogotameli was saying was to an angular proximity, not kilometers, not, it's one of that system which is over there. That's what he's saying. Dogon lectures are quite interesting field studies. Basically, Briel was taught the secret knowledge of Dogon astronomy, and they had a word for our sun, it was Ne. Any bright object in the sky is called Po. They explained the relative size of the sun and the star core by saying, well, that's about the size of the sun, that's about the size of the star core, the smallest seed. So they named the star core Potolo, which means small, bright object. And they said it was a massive old star, the remains of a massive old star that had died violently and provided all the matter for the planets in the solar system. That was Dogon. And they said, Potolo was surrounded by a ring of cloud, and sometimes it had the appearance of an eye. And that's why it's called the eye star. When you look at Dogon astronomy symbols, it's fairly obvious that we able to see Venus and Mars because they're bright and you see with the naked eye. But what's strange is that their symbol for Jupiter shows the Galilean moons. You can't see the Galilean moons with that telescope. In addition, they can see the rings of Saturn. You can't see the rings of Saturn with that telescope. But they didn't know about Uranus or Neptune. So they weren't, if there were aliens coming in a spaceship, they would know all the objects in the solar system. This sounds like a group of people who had telescopes, but a long time ago.
So what's the Pleiades?
Sorry?
What have you got written there? Pleiades constellation?
So this is the Pleiades, this is their symbol for Sirius, this is their symbol for Southern Cross, this is the symbol they used for the Sun in a previous era, showing its poles. And there's just some of their symbols, but they don't have the ice giant planets.
There are 9 stars in the Pleiades.
In this case, there are 9, but if you have a look at the Pleiades, it's supposed to be 7.
Yeah, there are 13. We've got 9 in there between the diagrams.
Yeah. Okay, this is evidence that maybe people did have telescopes. These are statues that are 5,000 years old. They're in the Louvre. The lenses, beautiful lenses, look at that. So the Egyptians had lenses. This is a lens from Assyria. Okay, that's not so old, but it's just showing that we have this blanket idea that some technology just wasn't available. It was available. When you get 2 lenses on a tube, you get a telescope. So I'm arguing, this is a Dogon carving. What's that? A spear? Or is it a telescope? I think it's probably a spear. Right, let's get on to astrophysics. What they told the Dogon told the Grial, was that Hotel was very tiny, but it was also very massive, and explained it was made of this stuff called cigar, which was super dense metal. And they explained the density by saying if you squeeze 480 donkey loads, or those mules, in something that size, you get the density of Star Core matter. Now that's pretty amazing, even they know that sort of stuff. Anyway, so the Grial, in his publications, estimated it was about 35,000 kilograms per litre. Now, the physics of collapsed matter in star cores is quite well established. And so if you have a density, you can work out mass, and you can work out size. Okay? And so on this particular curve, 35 kilograms per litre fits an object which is 10% the mass of the Sun and is about 3 Earth diameters.
Sorry, about how many?
Well, it's 2.6, but in my books I say 2 to 3. I mean, it's sort of very hand waving stuff, I mean, how big is a donkey load? Is that sort of question. But you're in the right ballpark, They also said that the Hotel wasn't just a lonely object, it had a whole mass of material orbiting, so dust, rocks, even planets. And what happened was that over some thousands of years, the Nome system, which is the system of objects around Potolo, and Ogo system, which is our solar system, Ne is our sun, would merge, and then there'd be a terrible cataclysm. And they pointed to Sigitolo, which is then named Sirius, because it's the sort of approximate direction in the sky where Nome was located. They also said that Venus was once part of the Nome system, but was captured. And that's when we talked earlier about the origin of heat of Venus. Because if you put an object in a highly elliptical orbit around a massive body, you get a lot of tidal heating, and that's probably what was happening with Venus. There's another picture I took. Cyrus is great for taking astronomy pictures, it's so clear. Right, that's Orion, Taurus, Pleiades. So you see that's an actual picture. That's the horizon down there, and the orbital track of Zeus is coming up through here. Okay? When Zeus reaches the Pleiades around about here, it's crossing the ecliptic plane, because that's where the ecliptic is, that's where the planets go. And it's only about 50 AU from the Sun when it gets there. What the Dogon did was show the flyby in their diagram. So they showed it moves down here, and it was going around the Sun of the previous era. This is showing the poles of the Sun. So they said basically it's currently far away near Sirius, but thousands of years ago it became visible near Orion. It then moved to the Pleiades. It then moved north and transformed the face of the fox. The things on the front of the cover of the book is this weird face of a fox. I found this infrared photograph from Iris. It was just a weird thing. One night I was collecting my photograph. What's that? where did that come from? And it's just one of these chance images, but there's a dust cloud in that part of the sky. It looks like the face of a box. And the other thing it says, half illuminated by sunlight, Potola looked like a turtle. And what they're actually saying is it's like they saw a hemisphere, illuminated hemisphere. And I made this comment, Earth was inverted at that time, because it's very hard to do three-dimensional stuff. But the point is, it would be a turtle upside down on its back if the planet was the right way up. So if the turtle was the right way up, the planet was upside down. And they said, when Nomo and Ogo mingled, there was cataclysm on our planet. They even drew diagrams of the object as they observed it coming down. And the main thing they were saying that it descended from the North Polar constellations. It was very bright by the time it got very close to us. It was radiating what they said, the brilliant thunderbolts, so what looked like electrical discharges. When it dropped towards the horizon, it filled the whole sky, so it must be a very large object going very close to us. Then Earth was shaken by earthquakes, rock faults, glowed, roar in the air, ground booms, huge tornadoes, cascade of fire, big bombs, meteorites. It was a very dramatic event. Okay. And I'm trying to explain what was actually going on. So basically what Dogan said, the stars are seen to move in unison across the sky. It's not just Dogan who says this, different cultures say this. So Iraq, Iran, India, they all talk about the same observation. They're looking at the sky, suddenly all the stars start going in one direction. That's not because the stars are moving, we were moving. Okay, then once we get into the actual cataclysm, then everything gets covered in dust and everything goes dark. Okay? And they said that before the cataclysm, the sun rose in the west. After the cataclysm, it rose in the east. It's a Dogon. But it's not just a Dogon who says this, other cultures say this too. And one of the things quite interesting, they say the northern stars used to be the Southern Cross. They have a symbol. That's the Southern Cross. That's the Dogon symbol for the North Pole. So basically, at the time, you started to use this symbol, the Earth, North Pole of the Earth, was facing the Southern Cross. After the disaster, basically, it still used that symbol, but the Southern Cross now faces our south geographic pole. How Zeus could actually flip a planet, just doing a flyby with any contact. Very likely, Zeus has a very powerful magnetic field. In fact, I've said there's a radio source, 3C161, blasting out synchrotron radiation. It's got a big magnetic field. And we just get messed around like a ball compass, it goes past, the magnet flips itself.
So would it be, it's a physical, it's not just a magnetic field thing, though, is it? You want to talk about?
No, I'm saying that our Earth is a bit like a bar magnet. And the force is a magnetic coupling. So it's not like magnetic pole wonder. It's just like, okay, we've got a pretty fixed magnetic field direction. This big thing comes by and we lock onto it, just like a ball magnet.
So then if you've got another magnet, you could flip the entire Earth.
Yeah, so you need a pretty strong force to get that done. But I'm just saying that's a possible mechanism of how the planets
flip. But the magnetic field has flipped several times in history, hasn't it? So
yes, magnetic field reversals are much rarer. And I think what that requires is for Zeus to get so close, it actually cancels our field and induces a new field in the opposite direction. So, we've got a theory about the hydrodynamic origin of the magnetic fields of the Earth, but in fact, we don't really know where it comes from. And in fact, we don't even know in the last 100 years, massive polar warming. It's very hard to explain what's driving. And it may just be that our planet's just relaxing back after 4,000 years and pumped up in the opposite direction.
It doesn't move the Earth, actually, it's a magnetic field.
No, I'm saying the magnetic field is actually like a bar magnet. Yeah. So when you bring another very big magnet, this is a Star Core nearby, such that there's enough of a magnetic couple to push the thing over. It's very hard to explain if it's gravity. Like if it's getting close enough by gravity, you would be in pieces.
So there's enough coupling now between the core and the rest of the Earth,
yes,
the entire Earth.
Yeah. Well, the idea is there's always this idea that there's some big liquid thing rotating around inside our planet. But in fact, every seismic experiment that's ever been done shows our planet's pretty solid. So,
So it's a pretty solid liquid.
Yeah, viscous. We say highly, so viscous and solid. Okay, I love these guys. These are the timekeepers. They keep the time on the heads, all right? Anyway, so every 60 years, the Dogon celebrates a ceremony which is actually a countdown to the next cataclysm and renewal. And celebrates it, as I say, every 6 years with a Signy ceremony. The count started when Sirius abruptly changed colour from red to brilliant white. Now, this is a big mystery in ancient astronomy that all the classical authors say Sirius is a red star, not a bright white star. And nobody's been able to come up with a good explanation of what that's all about, because if it was some sort of nuclear physics process, it just would take a much longer period of time, it would be catastrophic. So it seems it's like light scattering, or some big cloudy object in front of Sirius, it's light and scattering and turning red. Anyway, so basically there was a colour change in Sirius and they started counting. And they say that it's only half the orbit they're counting. They say there's a twin orbit, so it's half the orbit they're counting. And it's the basic counting time from effectively aphelion to perihelion. And they're counted for 25 ceremonies, which is 1500 years. They have a specific date. They said there's 6 more to celebrate, and that takes you to 2387 as the latest date for a flyby. Fairly approximate, but it's giving you a general scale. Now, I'm going to jump cultures. We've been talking about Dogon, but in West Africa. This is ancient Iranian. In fact, the Iranians used to be called the Aryans. And they too have very similar ideas. So this is in Persepolis, in Iran. This is Mithra. This is Venus, but it's also associated with the destroyer comet. And this is a fire altar, where this is about the Zoroastrian religion, which is all about worshipping fire. And what they're doing is commemorating the time when the Earth caught fire. Anyway, so this is a star with a dusty torus, which basically is what that is. And this is a picture from the Venus Express European Space Agency spacecraft. And you see sources of ancient astronomy in Iran is the Avesta, Vendadad, the Yasts, and Bundish. Bundish is like an ancient encyclopedia. Basically, they also believe the solar system was binary. The sun was forward far, and Mithra was the other object. But Mithra was so revered, they generally discussed his cloudy torus rather than the central object itself. And that was called Tish. I think we have real problems now. Anyway, Tishriya, the cloud cloak. Mithra Tishra was hidden near Sirius, as they say quite specifically, for thousands of years, but could be observed at the end of each cycle of creation. And then he returned to destroy and renew our Earth, which they could descend. They also said there was a planet-sized comet in orbit called the Destroyer, which became the planet Venus. And finally, they believe, and it's not very clear bas relief, but basically the order of priority, as far as their religious views were concerned, was that Mithra was the most powerful, followed by comet planet Venus, followed by the Sun, in terms of influence on the planet. Okay, more details. Mithra was said to be a massive sphere. He was made of heavenly metal. He was only seen very rarely at the end of each cycle of creation. Here's from a clay. There's a clay imprint of a cylinder seal showing this object and worshiping it. Here again, there's another image of Mithra. And this is a later image. These are around 3,000 years old. This is about 2,500 years old.
The Romans haven't built Mithra.
Yeah, Mithras is a resurrection of that Persian religion. So the Persian religion is much older, but the Romans re-echoed those ideas. And where are we now? Okay, so important features. Okay, they talked about this cloud surrounding him, hiding him from view. They said Mithra was first observed in Orion, and when observed in the Pleiades, he'd become like a fish-shaped comet. It's important because other cultures say the same thing. They say there's things seen in a fish-shaped comet. And also, when you got closer, he looked like a great eye hanging in the sky. Remember the eye of Horus. circular object with a ring around it. And when he got even closer, it looked like a chariot wheel flying towards the Earth. And then finally, when he got very close, he looked like a winged disk. And what you're looking at, if you can imagine a spoked wheel, if you look at one way, it's a wheel, a circle with spokes. If you look that way, you see the central hub and rim like wings on a sphere. Ancient authors like Plutarch said there was a strong association between Mithra and Horus, and that also this winged disk had inverted the Earth and adorned the night sky with new constellations. Also, it was no longer visible, but Sirius was its guardian. And he also associated the winged disk with the cycle of world ages. Every ancient mythology has this idea about recreation of civilization and cycles of existence. And further, there was more connections with the ancient big comet that used to be Venus. In fact, early in Aryan mythology, this evil horned destroyer comet is more significant than Mithra. And this is an old image from Milan, which is in southeastern Persia, Iran. Anyway, it was called Ariman, the evil horned destroyer comet, and it ended the first age of the world. And you can attribute that to the climate change, climate freeze, what's called the Older Dryas, which is about 13,600 BC. Then there was a second age of the world, which persisted for 3,000 or 4,000 years, and again was destroyed by this comet. And this was occurring in 9,600 BC, another climate freeze, the Younger Dryas, and this is this big transition between the Pleistocene and the Holocene. And according to the Wunderchen, this is the ancient encyclopedia, the destroyer came with fire, smoke, and poison, planets dashing around the celestial sphere, constellations were confused. On Earth, there was suffering, hunger, and death. And also cross-reference this same destroyer comes in different cultures. There are different names in Iran, or related names in India, so there's Shiva, Indra, Ahi, and Rutra. In China, you've got Li and Yai, Tiamat in Sumerian or Babylonian, and also the comet eventually became known as Anahita and finally Anahit, kind of means you get a direct line of connection between the ancient destroyer comet down to Venus in Iranian astromythology.
And the reason that it was called a destroyer was that because Venus would have, when the Star Core came, Venus would have been.
Well, it's in a resonant orbit with Venus because it originally was a moon, Star Core. So generally these things turn up more or less at the same time.
And that would have caused more problems than the actual Star Core itself.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Closer.
Yeah, so it seems the capture of Venus was somehow connected with the Earth. So it seems we got very close to Venus at that time. This is just a grid of world age myths, and one of the things that's interesting was an astronomical point of view. This idea of sunrise in the West appears in most mythologies, and also the appearance of seasons appears in most mythologies. So this is, when you have appearance of seasons, it means that the actual angle of the planets changed. So when you have big axial angle, that is the perpendicular to the ecliptic has been changed, you get seasons. So it means that the planet's definitely been shaking around. And they give different names in different cultures. So you heard of the Yugas in India. You get also in China, you have these eras based on mythological emperors. They even have a big bas-relief diagram in the Forbidden City of these different cultures. So they show all the, they show the comet, destroyer comet, and Star Core, two dragons always fighting each other. I've got some better pictures later. You can see the idea is the five world ages. 5 of these battles happen. Right, back to Aryan ancient astronomy. In the Avesta and Wunderchen, they talk about this great king Yima, who ruled the Aryans 12,000 years ago. The big question is, where were they geographically? And you could do it, and some people done some very good analysis in showing the region the Aryans basically came from was this sort of Fergana Valley, Pamir Mountains. So we're basically talking about Afghanistan and southern Uzbekistan. this region. But the story says basically they lived in underground city shelters prior to the disaster. They were good astronomers, they knew the bad stuff was coming, they got everyone underground, and then they watched the bombardment happen. And anyone who was outside was killed. They talk about the flyby of this great Thunderbird, the Mithra fighting the comet, the destroyer comet, and this battle between the Mithra and the destroyer comet appears in iconography all the way through Iranian culture.
How deep do they have to go?
Well, I'll show you some pictures. They went pretty deep. I'll show you some of them. Okay, so this is the cataclysm of ice. So we're talking about this period, 9,600 BC, transition from the Pleistocene and the Holocene. So these are big changes in our Earth time. What happened was there was pole shifts. Right now, this is a map of the polar regions. 5 is our present pole. But if you actually map where all the ice was, you can see this funny sort of oval shape. And in fact, if you look at climatic zones over the last 20,000 years, you can show the poles are approximately in these positions since the last glacial maximum. Because the thing is, when you move with the pole on the planet, what really moves is the equator. And we're doing so much research on climate now that you can actually see how climatic regions change. You may not be aware of this, but the Amazon rainforest has moved completely. It wasn't there before. I mean, bits of the Amazon rainforest used to be down south towards near Argentina, and another point is right up on the Venezuelan coast, and it was actually quite dry, what we say is the Amazon rainforest. So what I'm saying is these quite distinct climatic zones we're familiar with move around, because basically the equator moves around. Right, this is a candidate for the city of Orion in this region I mentioned in the Pamir Mountains. It's called Canning Gut Complex. It's very old. It's a very old cave system. It was used as mines, but there's evidence of Mesolithic occupation. This is the Pamir Mountains in Central Asia. This is much more recent, these underground cities. These are in Mustang in Nepal. So this one is thousands of years old. But I'm just saying, they're all over the world, from like 4,000 years ago, there are these ancient cities. Now, there's other evidence that big climate change happened, big disasters happened. Everyone knows the story of Atlantis. What's interesting about Atlantis? Okay, first, geologically it sort of existed, because this is the Bay of Biscay. This bit is around the Azores and basically fits in there. So there was some continental landmass in the middle of the ocean. Recently, this extraordinary discovery was made. Okay, this guy was using sonar, and he found a pyramid. It's all over the internet. Of course, people go, no, impossible, it's got to be a natural seamount. It's geometric. It's got straight edges. You can do this now. And in fact, if you do a quick analysis of that sonar image, you get an object which is about 1.5 times the Giza Great Pyramid, and it's underwater. But it's definitely, it's a big echo.
Well, where is it?
It's here. That's the Azores, the islands of the Azores on Portugal, and that's exactly where the object is. And I just pulled out a completely this a fishing map, and it's definitely thinks there's something there. We just don't know what it is. And that's an international fishing zone map, and so this nothing to do with this wacko science. This gets even more wacko. I don't even know about this story. This is great. Okay, looks like, Millennium Falcon crashed on the bottom of the Baltic Sea. It's the Baltic, it's on 100 meters of water, and there's a weird structure on the bottom of the sea. Again, it's a sonar image. Nobody knows what it is. They thought it might be a wreck of some ship, maybe something. They've dived it, it's magnetic, it's ceramic, it's the size of a 747 jet, basically. And it's got a 300-meter skid mark behind it. Nobody knows what it is, but it's either an ancient monument or it's something, if you really love aliens, it's substantial alien spaceship. But again, you can research, just check it. This is how done. This is quite well known. This is Yonaguni, which is this rock which has been carved, but it's underwater. It's just here, soft. This is southern end of Japan. And again, it's very angled structures, geometric structures, so you can see how big it is by the size of the divers. if it was a monument, it's probably 8,000 years old, just based on sea level rise. The Indians, going back to the thing about the fish comet, the Indians talk about the fish comet that brought the flood. So basically, in the biblical stories of the Great Flood, it's just a story of the Great Flood. But in India and Iran, it's all connected to astronomy. And they'll tell you it's all connected to these objects coming from the sky. And anyway, so they say that Mithra Tristra, that's Iranian, or Vedic Indian says Mithra Tisya, so it's basically the same story. Were hidden between Sirius and Orion for thousands of years, they came back and caused the Great Flood. And they say, again, it was observed first in the Pleiades, a moving star, and formed a huge fish-shaped comet. And that's what brought the Great Flood. And in the Iranian stories, it's quarter of West 8, they say it's precisely the constellation. They say the first stars, which is the constellation of Pleiades, Haptor-Ringa, which is the constellation of Ursa Major, and then finally Vega. So basically these things come up over the sun, down the other side, and you know Vega is basically the opposite side of the sky to Sirius. Okay? So it's in that plane, that orbit. And that's a nice picture. They also say, I mean, you probably, I don't know if you ever wondered why Aquarius is called Aquarius, the water carrier, which is where the flood came from. Right? So basically, all the ancient stories say the water poured out of the sky from the constellation of Aquarius. And so basically what the Iranians say is the lightning star flew over the sun, changed its form from the shape of a fish comet into a flying horse. This is an ancient Iranian bas relief, and the transformation was from this fish into a flying horse. So that's a Greek Pegasus. Okay? And so in the stories it says, and they put times and days. They say 20 days it took for it to come inbound, crossing the constellation Pegasus. And when it reached the Sagittarius, which is Aquarius, the deluge started pouring out of the sky, and that made the Great Flood. And they also say it took exactly 30 days from perihelion above the sun to the flyby to Earth. And based on my orbital model, it takes 30 days. So they got the orbital parameters pretty well right.
That's what do you think that means, Andrew? It was bombarded by comets with water in it?
I think the object, first, origin of water is very simple. That in any type of stellar explosion, when you get oxygen, there's lots of hydrogen in the stars, very likely you get a huge amount of water in any stellar process. And this star core trapped, I think, what I'm going to know, is an ocean of water. There's literally an orbiting ocean of water around this star core. And that's where our water came from. It's a big mystery where our saline water came from.
But it wouldn't be in the form of water, it would be ice crystals or something like that.
It depends what's going on close to that star. It could be ice crystals, or it could be liquid water if there's lots of tidal effects going on. But very good point, yeah. It's more like ice crystals.
We heard of the theory of the asteroid, the Ice Age.
Right.
So ice built up ice, and there was a comet that hit North America, and
Yeah, there's
water flooded like that.
Yeah, there's an idea at the moment, there's an impact crater under the ice in Greenland, or there's more than an idea because I actually measured it, and that could explain the dramatic change in climate and destruction of the ice caps over Hudson Bay. But it could be all part of the same process, and all sorts of stuff could be going on when these flybys happen. So there'd be bombardments as well. This is a lovely pot in a museum, in the Pushkin Museum in Moscow. It's a Greek vase from 440 BC, but actually shows the Bull of Heaven, the Star Core, and the bowl pouring water on the Earth. And the Bull of Heaven, by the way, is another name for Venus, when it's a comet. And so they talk about, and this is from Iranian sources, they talk about 10 days before the flood, the Bull of Heaven could be seen in the sky with Mithra Tishra. So this is Mithra, this is when it got close to Earth, it's saying the same sort of thing. So it's coming into water, into Aquarius. It resembles a spoke chariot wheel. And then it says the lightning star brought the deluge. The wheel was located in the centre of Aquarius, and all these liquid started to come down. And one of the important things they say in some of these stories, it wasn't rain, it wasn't sweet rainwater, it was salty, hot, salty water that came down. And then it talks about as the actual flyover and the booming, huge waves, inundation of the land, and a meteor bombardment as well.
And sorry, Rupert, where was this from? Which culture?
This story is coming from the ancient Iranians. So when you get yes, this is ancient Iranian. So yeah, basically research ancient Iranian astroastronomy because it's astro-mythology. It's great. It's really detailed, and we don't hear about it much. This is ancient Greek. They believed there was an ocean in the heavens. Ancient Greeks had an ocean in the sky. Ancient Aryan said there's actually an ocean around Mithra. And the important thing, as I said before, hot, salty water is coming down. It's not raining. And the torrent was enormous. So let's say drops of water the size of men's heads or bull's heads. So it's like big sort of like balls of water was coming out of the sky. And again, you get great lots of disruptive, catastrophic stuff. Sorry?
Where should the sword come from?
Well, because I'm saying that if you have a big dirty star explosion, then you've got basically the solution in orbit around that star. Now, whether, okay, Andrew said, it could be a cloud of ice crystals rather than actual liquid water, but some process is heating up because what came down is water.
Where does the sword come from?
The soul would come from the original explosion of the star. So basically, when the star goes supernova, there's going to be lots of materials in that star. We don't know ourselves what the solar comes from. I mean, okay, we think it's leached out of rocks, and it takes billions of years to do it. But the salinity of our oceans is still a mystery. We don't know exactly where it comes from. And I'm just going to show this is actual data of the sea level rises. And basically, climate physicists will draw curves if they can, but you can equally well draw steps through data. So, as the end, there were floods, sequence floods. Again, going back to the Iranian stories, it's all about always the Star Core plus comet Venus. So there's always two characters involved. When I was researching, I thought, okay, I'm really trying to look at the Star Core story, but each time you look at it, you get, both these characters are involved. So this is Draco, and Draco is strongly associated with the Venus in the form of a comet, and the idea that basically they were seen battling in the sky. So in ancient Aryan mythology about Mithra being a white horse, Appa being a dark horse, and they were two objects which you see in the sky before there was a flood. This is a very nice picture I took in Singapore. So this is two astronomical objects here, two dragons. This is the water plunging down from heaven. This is the flood. This is the great flood. This is the deluge. We tend to, in English, to think about just the deluge and flood being the same thing. But the deluge is basically stuff coming out of the sky. The flood is what happened afterwards. Don't worry about Brexit, guys. Happened 8,000 years ago, see? That was all. We're in connection to Europe, then we weren't in connection to Europe. So basically, the separation of the UK from Europe happened suddenly, and it's now well established. There was a sudden event. You can find, for example, in fact, in the Isle of Wight, in fact, there's villages underwater here, there's river channels. Up here in the North Sea, you can find old walls. Basically, a very sudden flooding event separated the UK from Europe. Exactly the same time, the Black Sea was converted from a freshwater lake to a salty sea. You can find objects underneath the remains of dwellings. You can do the same in the Baltic. Persian Gulf didn't exist before 8,000 years ago. So that was just a dry valley, and then that was flooded. Right, jumping again. Now, okay, I was talking about 12,000 years ago, I was talking about 8,000 years ago, this is about 4,000 years ago. This is Cataclysm of Fire, this is the end of the Middle Kingdom of Egypt, end of the Indus Valley civilization, end of the Sai civilization in China. This is the Dendera temple, which is normally attributed to a much later period, say it's like Ptolemy period, like 300 BC. But in fact, it's got lots of astronomical symbolism. It's actually orientated towards the flight path of Star Core. It is the Star Core. It's like a cinema frames going off to the south, under the north to south. And they also celebrated Venus as well in the same temple. Hathor is Venus, Horus is the Star Core. There's another mystery about what's going on with our planet, because before 1628 BC, all astronomy records, or calendar records, show that we have 360 days per year, not 365 days per year. And in fact, the origin of our geometry, where we have 360 degrees and circles, connected to that 365 days a year. This tradition was carried on in Tumar for another 400 years after the event that changed the number of days per year. So you can see what the ancient Egyptians used to do was record 10-day weeks. So we'd have 36 10-day weeks. Each 10-day week was associated with a particular star, particular constellations. So you get this going all the way through until about 11, well, it's basically towards the end of the New Kingdom. But all of these are astronomical imagery on roofs of all these.
So you're saying that there was a sudden step change in the speed of the Earth's rotation? It slowed down by 5 days?
No, I'm saying orbit was changed. So basically,
the orbit was changed.
Yeah. So basically, we basically got slightly further away from the sun. You can actually see the changes in the overall climate history in that period. So the warmest period of the Holocene is between 4,000 years ago and 8,000 years ago. Okay, so I'm saying we got slightly further away. So we're still spinning more or less at the same rate, but we actually picked up that number. So we're basically 1%, effectively 1%, further away from the sun. Okay, this is Iraq. This is the Sumerians, the old Babylonians. So they were already making imagery of the Star Core after the flood, so after 5000 BC. And in fact, you translate this. This is Sumerian, it's Old Babylonian, actually. Old Babylonian script. That translates the star, planet, massive storm, wind, bird. That's the name they came up with. Or another name they came up with was distant heaven bird, and Zoo. In 1700 BC, this is how old this cylinder seal is, they're starting to show star cores back in the sky, and this is a post-apocalyptic cylinder seal. And at that time, in the Old Babylonian era, they primarily called Star Core Nibiru. And again, on the internet you'll find a ton of stuff about Nibiru, which is going to hit us each year, it's going to hit us, but it's actually, people have picked up on this. It does say that some people are kicked out and don't fully understand.
So Rupert, are you saying that Nibiru is Star Core Zeus?
Yes. But the stuff you get on the internet where they're saying it's coming. I mean, it's still very far away. It's 350 years inbound. I mean, it's still very small. It's invisible now. You can only see it with certain telescopes. If you look on YouTube, you see it made. With pan stars, you can see it. With wires, you can see it. You detect radio frequency radiation, but you can't see it optically.
Can you see it from New Zealand?
Not really, because basically it's going to be between Sirius and Orion. Yes, of course you can see it in New Zealand, but you don't need to be in the southern hemisphere to see it. The main thing is still you need reflected sunlight to see the object if you use an optical telescope. It's not radiating in the optical region.
How many solar masses is it?
Solar masses is 0.1 solar mass. It's basically the remains of a core of the star. So it may have started out on a 10 solar mass large star, went through a fast cycle and blew up. But what's left of it is only 0.1. And the thing is, if it was any bigger, we wouldn't have a solar system. I mean, I've actually modeled it. You can actually fly through a solar system because the sun is 10 times bigger than the Star Core. The Star Core basically doesn't grab the planets, so it has to get very close to grab the planets.
Do we think
The energy planets are closely affected by Venus and Earth, but it flies close. It flies about 7 million kilometers from us when it does a flyby. Well, that's the closest point you can get. But because it's got this strange orbit, that it's only if it's June and we're in the June location in orbit and it flies through, because that's where the intersection point is. That's very bad for us. So we're on the other side of the sun at the time, and it's not so bad, because it's whizzed through and we're far away from it. And that's why you get variability in these crises. Okay, these are all astronomical records which have been dug up. Primarily they are Assyrian, which means they are really from about 1000 BC, but they are known copies of old Babylonian data. Okay, so Nibiru is recorded in all of these different texts. So Appian is very famous, and Elish is very famous. This is an enigmatic astronomy tablet. People find it great difficulty interpreting, but recently somebody has translated to show that it's showing a flight path from Orion, Pleiades, Taurus, Triangulum, which is the flight path. So it's probably again the same story. So in their case, they've got to go that way, because you don't know which way around to read it. That's all. Because each segment is a time slot showing something. This is actually a photograph just to see the relative size of these things as Pleiades. The discussion now is the 7 stars 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11. Right. So it's basically the visible stars are 7, but there are more than maybe in this one, 13. Anyway, so Moon and Pleiades are approximately the same size, angular size. These are impressions of cylinder seals, and you can see the Star Core, Pleiades, Pleiades, Star Core. So it's showing Star Core moving relative to the Pleiades. Okay, and they have the Moon in there as well. And in fact, the Moon to Pleiades ratio is about right. So Pleiades. So they're actually quite accurately representing what we're looking at. Now, the actual disaster itself, everyone's familiar with the island of Santorini in June blowing up. Now, we always used to think that was just a one-off, one terrible disaster, one volcanic explosion, but it's part of many catastrophic events that happened at the same time. But this is the artwork of the Minoans, very beautiful. They were building a 2-story house. It was a very advanced civilization.
So, was the Santorini business affected by this thing?
Yes, so I'm saying if you have big tidal forces on the Earth, all volcanoes come apart.
Yeah, I see.
And that's what triggered, that's what kicked off Santorini.
Santorini.
This one is still a little bit active. I mean, I've actually stood on the cone and saw smoke. But it's the big explosion was in 1628 BC. In fact, this is I keep saying 1628 BC. That's my sort of time point dating, right? Because it's the best evidence. People spend a lot of time trying to work out how long ago. Now, how are we on time? Speed up.
Yeah, we're good.
You're okay? Okay, so after the cataclysm of fire, Egyptians recorded the catastrophe. And this is a famous papyrus called the Rupert papyrus. And I can give a little abstract of saying, in the time of Horus, which is Star Core, as the ancestors foretold, there came to pass a predestined event. Right? All towns were destroyed, gates, columns, walls were consumed by fire, trees uprooted, ships drift abandoned, river water undrinkable, blood red from some poison, people thirst for water, Upper Egypt wasteland, fields of deserts. I was talking about definite wipeout. And this is a strange one. See, everyone's hair is falling out. That's not radiation. Terrible time. You get another description in this story called The Destruction of Mankind by Horus and Hathor, and this is on the Temple of Seti. So this is the astronomical part of the temple. The story is actually recorded on these walls here. And again, you get the same thing, flyby of Horus and Hathor, that's Star Core Venus, giving rise to terrible events and basically new sun appearing. So old sun disappears, new sun appears. So west rising sun replaced by east rising sun. If you want bodies, you've got them here. These are, that's dated at 1628 BC. This is wipeout in Pakistan, which was the Indus Valley civilization. And all the cities in this region was going to be destroyed instantly. And they were digging up people in the streets when they did the excavations of these places.
Is there radiation in that?
Yes, there's also some discussion of radiation. So, and in fact, you can go to a museum in Exeter, and there are nodules that were dug up from the interface between Permian and Triassic. They're radioactive. Right? So we had that's a big bad Star Core flyby. And it does dump heavy metals, which are radioactive. So not just wiping out southern India, but also in China. So this was a region of China, you see the map very well, in central China, around the Yellow River. So the black spots represent settlements before 1628 BC, no settlements after 1628 BC, all one. So the listing of it is, so what was destroyed? Old Babylonian civilization, what is now Iraq, Indus Valley civilization, what is now Pakistan, the Sai civilization in China, this is before Chang, pre-Olmec culture in Central America, many more. There's lots of culture in the background.
You've actually put a year for the 4,000 years ago, as opposed to a century for the 5,600 and 9,600.
So say again.
So you've actually got 1620.
Yeah, because you have to estimate. When you go further back in the past, you don't have very tight dates. But the reason I've got 1628 is because they did huge research in Santorini, so they did lots of carbon-14, lots of pottery matching, and lots of things, and big debate in nature. So we're pretty clear when Santorini went off. I mean, some of these other ones you don't have sort of tight dates, but okay. So post this capitalism and fire, again, the Orion myths, and they're telling about the stars used to shine beneath the Earth and now shining above the Earth. They talk about Ahriman was responsible and gave it its various names. They said the destroyer comet came in from Draco, and then pouring what they're saying is Apam and Apam, which is liquid celestial fire. So they're actually saying that basically fire was caused by Venus rather than by the Star Core. And the result in a raging inferno, lots of smoke, lots of waves, lots of geological destruction. And that's why the Zoroastrians have these fire temples, because they're celebrating, commemorating this terrible time. And they say in their mythology, this Iranian mythology, that it was actually Mithra, i.e. the Star Core, that saved the Earth from destroyed by this Venus. So basically Mithra pulled Venus away from the Earth, so we didn't have a collision. But they're saying things like, red fallout dust has poisoned water, plagues of frogs, all sounds terribly biblical, because they're saying basically because the ground was poisoned, all the creepy crawlers came out of the ground very quickly. Lethal bombardment of meteorites, lots of blackness and fire. Again, talk about the wind globe that seemed to fly over, massive geological earthquakes, shuddering, faulting, fire, thunderbolts, it's all great stuff. But it's all there. Read the books. I mean, these are books from thousands of years ago. Right, so what do people do about it? Well, they built shelters. And in fact, you'll think about that, because 4,000 years ago, to build a whole city underground is a huge effort. Why do people do it? Right? It's not very effective for a military solution, to an invading army. You do it if something bad is happening in the sky. So this is city shelters in Iran. This is, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce this correctly, sorry, but it's an underground city in Iran. There is a famous ones in Turkey. We now know at least 36 underground cities in Cappadocia in Turkey, and recently new ones have been discovered. They have these big round stone doors to seal passages from some blasts coming from outside. They even had the Orions, amazing. They were building really sort of organised cities underground.
Not flush toilet though.
Yes, good point. But they had underground water supply, but there were multiple levels. But to build that is huge, huge effort. Why do you do it? You only do it if things are really bad.
How deep?
These things go down about at least, well, they say deepest go about 8 stories. So how do you go? And in fact, sometimes they weren't digging deep enough in Cyprus, they didn't dig deep enough. I'll show you why.
How many sort of capacity of people Thousands.
Thousands of people. This is called the Tombs of Kings in Paphos in Cyprus. I'm in Cyprus at the time. And the thing is, they were a bit slack. I mean, we dug them literally about a few meters below ground, and the result was bush. Like during this cataclysm, this just broke. And later, the Tombs of Kings turned into Roman cemetery, but they're much older. And the thing there is, I mean, they're definitely not a cemetery because that's a well, right? There's lots of staircase going down deeper levels of wells. You don't need wells in cemeteries.
Apparently there's one in China, and I can't tell you where it is, but I saw it.
There it is. All right. So this is fantastic. Look at this. Huge carved underground caverns. Again, the same thing. They were building, underground water supply, big caverns, shelters.
So, did you say they would have 70 years notice? That's when they were first spotted?
Yeah, you get about 70 years to get all this. So that's quite a fast bit of digging. And you've also got to know what you're looking at. I mean, you just see this funny thing come up through the sky, you don't know if it's bad news or not. That's why I'm warning you all now, so you've got 350 years. Okay, this is a ring, beautiful ring from Sardinia. There is Star Core Zeus. That's enjoying themselves until the last moment. And it's dated quite well, so it's 1600 BC. Again, you've got the same imagery in Egypt, in Star Core, it's Taurus, green wings, it's everywhere. You get it in Turkey, Hittite Turkey, again, the same Star Core wings, venerated. And also in Iran. So this is Cephalus, but that's also in Iran. And we also in China. So this is very old actually, this is made of wood, and this image is from actually after the Great Flood, so this is like after 5000 BC. Here you see this pots with strange astronomical images on them, this is 2500 BC. This is a sort of, even though this is a recent copy, this is a standard image, like some object here, dragons around it, here in Shang era. Again, getting more recent periods, so this is Assyrian. Assyrian is about 1000 BC. Again, we're seeing Star Core, we're seeing Pleiades, Star Core. I'm just saying it's a global effect. This is even more recent, this is Maya, so this is basically 500 AD, 1000, Maya disappeared suddenly in 900. That's a good story in itself, actually, why they suddenly vanished. In fact, they're expecting Star Core to come back with the date. So society collapsed, you can sacrifice some of these people and demanding the food, and you get the date. So, big social collapse. This is the Aztecs. Again, this is Tlaloc, I have terrible names. This is the Quetzalcoatl pyramid, and you see it's got Quetzalcoatl, that is Venus, as a comet, snake, feathered serpent, and this is Star Core. But you've got to remember the Aztecs are much later, but it's in their sort of cultural history. Aztecs also recorded the suns, inverted suns, different ages of the world. These are the 5 ages of the world recorded on the Codex Borgia, which is in the Vatican Library. This is even on Easter Island, strange objects being carved on the back of the Moa. You've also got this in Tiwanaku in Bolivia, which is again similar. And that's Viracocha, which stories associated with Viracocha, which is Star Core stories. But I can't go into all the cultures because it's a huge amount of information. Anyway, what is interesting is these ancient South Americans knew some very strange and interesting things. This, an elliptical temple. The temple of Viracocha was an elliptical wall temple. And in fact, the Spanish knocked it down, was a cathedral on top of it. But before it was completely destroyed, there was an actual drawing done of the astronomical diagrams that were actually on the wall of the interior of the temple. And that's now in Madrid. But again, all sorts of symbolism which suggests Pleiades, maybe Star Core orbits. What's this? it's Orion. And finally, as you talk about Mithras, in Roman times, this is in the Mithraeum in London, and this is actually pointing to the dawning of the age of Aquarius. This is a zodiac right here, and this is the return of Mithras and the destruction of the world, the dawn of the age of Aquarius. And I'm not going to go into great detail how I write this, but this is the orbit. And so the point is that if Earth axis is actually somehow tracking the star core as it comes into the solar system, it will actually affect the equinox position. And basically our equinox is determined by the way our planet leans into space. And anyway, they say the next cataclysm comes at the end, the dawn of the age of Aquarius. That's what you see. So to summarise, I'm just going to quickly go back through these most recent events. So end of Ice Age, what was happening? So originally Venus was orbiting Star Core, somehow some interaction between Earth, Venus and Star Core resulted in Venus getting captured into our solar system, and so the Star Core flew off from Venus's in orbit with the Sun. So for the next 4,000 years it's in the same orbital plane as the Star Core, and in resonance, so basically next time Star Core comes back, so does Venus. Venus will be coming back in a much shorter period. This is the cataclysm fire, and so what happened this time was that there was a major interaction between Earth, Venus, and Star Core, and that changed the orbit of Venus out of the plane of the Star Core plane into the plane of the planets around the Sun. And the only reason I'm saying that may have happened is because it's a very strange Aztec story which says if you see Venus in Pleiades at midnight, then you are in trouble and there's going to be a catastrophe. Well, the point is you can't see Venus in Pleiades at midnight because it's closer to the Sun than we are, so it's impossible to see Venus in that position in the sky. That's been a completely different orbit if we could achieve that.
Would that orbit being around the Sun or around the Sun?
No, I'm saying by this point, the orbit is around the Earth. So basically, Venus is already in the solar system, around the Sun. Venus is already in the solar system.
But in a different orbit.
And it's in a different orbit. So here is what I'm saying. So before the Earth and Venus orbits were normalized, they were both quite elliptical. And there was some planetary gravity assist turn, and then circularize both our orbits. And so we no longer interact. But so all those destroyer quantum stories, because really there were close planets between Venus and Earth. So this is the predicted path inbound. So where we are now, 2017. So we're there. It's basically between Sirius and Orion, and then it comes up. But there's not much time elapses between the time you see it when it's crossing the ecliptic, which is 2371, and flyby 2372 or 73. It's only about 2 years. And once it's that close, then it's going to happen very little. And I'll show you now.
So it's going to be March.
Yeah, so this is an example of what could happen. So here comes Zeus coming over the top of the Sun. Zoom in, look, it's going to arch over and down towards us.
What year was that?
2372, it's okay. Grandchildren, my grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren.
This is the day I just wanted.
Yeah, it's a bit of editing and borrowing. That's the sort of stuff I'm talking about. But, and this is the remaining model. The model itself is Universe Sandbox 2, which is a great physics program, very strongly recommended. You can do anything in it. It's accurate physics, and you can blow up stars, you can make new orbits, new objects into the solar system, new star systems. You can boldly go. Okay, so end of talk, and I shall just put the last slide on if I can see it in the dark. Yes. Alright, so here's a huge amount of information. I strongly recommend you read the books. That's the best way. And once you've read the books, get on the internet, use some of these ancient, names of objects as keywords, and you'll find lots of stuff. The point is people just are not aware that literature exists now. you very much, Rupert. Thank you very much.